Step into the world of Tim Burton and Danny Elfman with the San Francisco Symphony. Hear music from Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and more. Performed live by the San Francisco Symphony with stunning visuals. Plus, a special live performance by Danny Elfman himself, November 13th and 14th at Davies Symphony Hall. Don't miss Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton, November 13th and 14th only. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.
I'm slipping sideways in my car, my foot took it too far. I'ma need a tow and I could use a ride. I'm sorry, Mama, grow up some.
If we could land a rocket on the moon in 1969, why can't I get my printer to connect to Wi-Fi in 2025? Like, NASA allegedly beamed humans 238,900 miles into space with a calculator the size of a toaster, but my GPS panics every time I drive under a tree. I'm just saying, the math's not mathing. Welcome back to Don't Quote Me, It's Probably Nothing, the podcast where I ask the questions nobody wants the answers to, and then spiral publicly for your entertainment. Today, we're putting on the shiny headgear because it's been a while, and we're talking about one of the most legendary conspiracy theories of all time, that the moon landing was faked. And there's only one thing I want to say for that, okay?
We are going to steal! Pause for effect.
Okay, I was recording myself doing it in his voice, and I did not do it very well. So I just played the clip instead. Buckle up, space cadets. Grab your freeze-dried mozzarella sticks and prepare to question everything you learned in 5th grade science class. And now, I'm not saying it's fake, but I'm also not saying that Stanley Kubrick needed rent money. So before we start doubting humanity's greatest flicks, let's go over what NASA claimed happened. Okay, so it's July 20th, 1969, and the United States is in the middle of the Cold War. The space race is on. Basically, America and the Soviet Union are having the world's most expensive My Rockets Bigger Than Yours competition, and then enter Apollo 11, the mission that was supposed to prove that democracy could yeet people into outer space. The crew? Neil Armstrong, the cool, calm, collected one. Buzz Aldrin, the guy who definitely overpacked snacks, just like I would. And poor Michael Collins, the man who literally drove the spaceship and didn't get to walk on the moon. My man orbited alone for hours while the other two took selfies in space dust. He's like the ultimate third wheel. Anyway, NASA says they launched from Kennedy Space Center on July 16th, 1969. 363 feet of rocket power known as the Saturn V, which looked like a giant middle finger to communism, spent 4 days traveling through space, which sounds glamorous until you realize it was like 3 men, 1 bathroom bag, and 0 showers in a glorified tin can. Then, July 20th, 1969, they reach lunar orbit. Neil and Buzz climb into the Eagle lunar module, which looks like a gold foil burrito with like legs. And Michael Collins stays behind in the command module like, all right, cool, I'll just be here watching. So they descend toward the moon's surface, alarms blaring, fuel running low, and at like 4:17 p.m. Eastern time, Neil Armstrong utters the most famous words in space history when he says, "Houston, Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed." And then a few hours later, Armstrong steps out and says, "That's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind," which I've been saying that wrong, I think. The whole thing is iconic, but if it were me, I would have 100% tripped while I was in the middle of like stepping out and then ruined it for everyone. Like history books would be like, that's one small step for man. Or I would have yelled the step for man part. Anyway, so they spend about 21 hours on the moon, collect rocks, plant the flag, take a ton of photos, which, by the way, were apparently on the first try with no lighting in 1969. They just nailed the perfect photographs. I can't even take a good selfie on the first try without like getting the perfect chin angle so that it doesn't look like my face is melting. You know what I'm talking about? So yeah, according to NASA, that's how it all went down. Or up, technically. The mission was watched by an estimated 650 million people worldwide, which was basically the 1969 version of like going viral. And then just like that, the crew comes back to Earth, splashed down in the Pacific Ocean, and boom, humanity's greatest achievement, wrapped up with a bow. But here's where it gets interesting, because while NASA was celebrating, a whole bunch of people were looking at these photos like, wait, why does that shadow look weird? And how's that flag waving? And thus, a tinfoil empire was born. All right, now that we've heard NASA's official bedtime story, let's talk about why people started calling it the greatest movie ever made. So here's the setup. It's the late 1960s, like I just explained, but I'm going to explain it again. Explain it again, not splain. Sorry, sometimes when I'm really high, I just omit whole sounds from my mouth, like from my words. But anyway, it's the late 1960s. America's losing the space race to the Soviets, and the White House basically goes, hey, what if we pretend we won? Because nothing says democracy and freedom like an elaborate lie filmed in a warehouse in Burbank. One of the most famous theories says the U.S. government hired legendary filmmaker Stanley Kubrick, yes, the guy who gave us The Shining and 2001: A Space Odyssey, to direct the moon landing footage. And honestly, the man had range. He went from space existential crisis to Jack Nicholson with an axe. So filming two dudes hopping slow motion would be light work. Conspiracy theorists point out that 2001: A Space Odyssey came out in 1968, just 1 year before the moon landing, and had shockingly realistic space visuals. So people were like, wait a second, how'd Kubrick know what the moon looked like before we allegedly went there? The theory gets juicier. They claim Kubrick left clues about it in his later films, especially The Shining, like how little Danny is wearing an Apollo 11 sweater when he sees those creepy twin girls. Allegedly, that was Kubrick's secret confession to helping fake the moon landing, because apparently if you help stage one of the biggest hoaxes in history, the best way to admit it is through children's knitwear. They also say the famous room 237 in The Shining represents the distance from the Earth to the moon, which is about 237,000 miles. And honestly, that's either a coincidence, which I don't believe in, or the most chaotic Easter egg ever dropped. Then there's the flag, the one that waves on the moon, where there's no atmosphere, which is like basically like trying to fly a kite in a vacuum cleaner. But NASA said it wasn't waving, it just was wrinkled from being jammed into the lunar surface. Okay, but why does it look like it's catching a breeze from an industrial fan just off camera, Steve? Okay, so another huge argument is that people claim the lighting in the photos don't make sense. The sun should be the only light source on the moon, but the shadows fall in different directions. Like one rock shadow is going north, Buzz's shadow is going west, and suddenly it looks like less space exploration and more poorly lit movie set. NASA says it's because of uneven terrain. Conspiracy theorists say it's because of studio lights. They also point out the absence of stars in the background. NASA claims that it was because the camera exposure wasn't long enough to capture them, but to skeptics it's like, oh wow, we made it to space and forgot to include the space. And then there are the boot prints. The tread pattern in the photo supposedly doesn't match the boots on the actual spacesuits in museums. So now we've got a whole who wore it better situation between astronauts and their stunt doubles. Some people even claim to see props in the photos, like a rock with like a letter C on it, which they say stands for camera. NASA insists it's just a stray hair or marking on the film. But I love the idea of some intern labeling rocks like, okay, this one's scene 2, take 3. And this one is my personal favorite. NASA allegedly lost the original footage. One of humanity's greatest achievements. Just gone. Like, imagine making a movie that historic and then going, oh yeah, someone taped over it with a Cheers rerun. Oops, our bad. Guess you'll just have to trust us. But sure, when someone says I lost the evidence, it always makes them look innocent. So yeah, between the perfect lighting, the suspiciously flappy flag, the mysterious missing footage, and Kubrick's alleged space movie resume, it's no wonder people still aren't convinced. So let's just say, just hypothetically, NASA did fake the moon landing. The big question is, why? Like, what's the motive? Because this wasn't a I lied about eating your leftovers situation. This was a global broadcast with a fake set, a script, and probably craft service.
Step into the world of Tim Burton and Danny Elfman with the San Francisco Symphony. Hear music from Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and more. Performed live by the San Francisco Symphony with stunning visuals. Plus, a special live performance by Danny Elfman himself. November 13th and 14th at Davies Symphony Hall. Don't miss Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton. November 13th and 14th only. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.
Imagine faking the biggest achievement in human history just because your country couldn't stand losing a group project. Did you ever get too high sometimes and your mouth just wants to, like, you get the shakes, I guess. I call them the shakes. Sometimes, like, I'll go to walk and my legs are real shaky, but like my lips, every time I go to say something, they keep wanting to go mama 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 mama. And doing that just now reminded me of that one video of that guy who he had like some type of stutter or something. And hold on, I'm going to see if I can play it. I don't, hopefully this doesn't offend anyone, but it is kind of funny. Okay, hold on.
Okay. You said you wanted to be a professional basketball player. What teams have you played for, Eric?
Well, my first year, I played in.
Eric is now stuck.
Shit. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry for that. I don't want to get canceled, so hopefully, I don't know. You found that funny. Because I did. I have to stop making myself laugh or I'm going to end up going into like a laughing fit for like 20 minutes. Okay, so the most popular theory for what like a motive could be was the Cold War. The 1960s were a mess of paranoia and posturing between the US and the Soviet Union. Two countries basically saying, we're better than you. That was stupid. Anyway, while building enough nukes to light up the entire planet. So the Soviets were killing it in the space race. The first satellite was Sputnik in 1957. They sent the first animal into orbit, and the first human in space was, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but Yuri Gagarin, maybe, in 1961. And America was still trying to figure out how to not blow up rockets on live TV. So when JFK stood up in 1961 and said, we choose to go to the moon, the nation collectively went, are you sure? The conspiracy says that by 1969, the U.S. was desperate for a win. The Vietnam War was a PR disaster, trust in government was tanking, and the Soviets were flexing like every 5 minutes. The second theory / reason is money and reputation. So NASA's budget in the 1960s was huge, like 4% of the national budget. And that's billions of dollars in 1960s money that the government was funneling into rockets, fuel, and math. And you just know some senator somewhere was like, where are the results, Jim? The theory says that NASA couldn't risk failure. They'd already had tragic accidents like Apollo 1, where 3 astronauts died in a cabin fire during a test. The nation was losing faith, scientists were under pressure, and the space race clock was ticking. So the logic goes, why risk another public disaster when you can just film one that goes perfectly? I think there's a movie, I think it's Watchmen, where in the beginning they opened it up to Bob Dylan, and it was the moon landing, and then like the camera pans out, and then it's like a movie set. I think that's the movie. But anyway, that just reminded me of that, so I had to tell you. There's also the propaganda theory that faking the landing was less about science and more about flexing on the entire planet. Like, look world, democracy's out here touching moons while communism's still on hold with customer service. If you think about it, a televised moon landing would have been the ultimate PR move, a clean, heroic narrative that Americans could rally behind. No messy war coverage, no political scandals, just good old-fashioned space glory. But it made the U.S. look powerful, technologically advanced, and most importantly, better than the Soviets. Honestly, the whole thing feels like if Instagram existed in 1969. Like, America posted a filtered moon selfie and everyone went Goals. I held up a peace sign while I said that, so I don't know what that was. Another layer to this is the idea that the government was already operating under major secrecy and surveillance projects at the time. Think MKUltra, the CIA's mind control program. Think secret nuclear testing. Think Area 51, which is already making headlines for weird UFO stuff. So, to conspiracy theorists, faking a moon landing doesn't sound that far-fetched when the government was literally doing, trust me, is classified every 5 minutes. And honestly, the 60s were chaotic enough that if someone had said, hey, we built a fake moon in Nevada, most people would have been like, yeah, that tracks. And the last big theory is distraction. Some believe the moon landing was meant to divert attention from other things, like political unrest, the civil rights movement, and Vietnam protests. Because nothing says, look over here, like broadcasting space heroes on live TV. It's the classic magician move. Misdirect the audience while something shady happens off screen. And it worked. Everyone was too busy crying patriotic tears while Neil Armstrong was out here allegedly stepping on a movie prop. So yeah, whether it was about beating the Soviets, saving face, keeping funding, or just giving the world a distraction, there are enough possible motives where like every single one is honestly weirdly plausible. All right, my fellow moon doubters and chaos gremlins, this is where things get weird. Because if there's one thing conspiracy theorists love more than grainy footage, it's yelling the phrase, they don't want you to see this. So let's talk about the evidence. The stuff that supposedly proves the moon landing was filmed right here on Earth, possibly in a secret military base, or a soundstage deep in the Nevada desert, or if you ask Reddit, somewhere between Area 51 and a Hobby Lobby. So, theory number 1. The entire thing was shot in a secret studio, likely at a NASA base or like a military facility. Some even say it was filmed in the same hangars used for testing lunar vehicles, which, yeah, would make sense if you already have moon dust props lying around. Apparently, insiders have claimed that there were massive sets built indoors, complete with fake craters, black backdrops, and lighting rigs to mimic sunlight. One alleged whistleblower said it was shot over multiple days and that the astronauts had to act in bulky suits under hot stage lights. Some claim that the footage even has reflections in the astronauts' visors that show studio lights or people moving around. NASA says it's just a glare. Conspiracy theorists say it's a grip holding a boom mic. One of the most infamous photos shows Buzz Aldrin standing on the lunar surface, and if you zoom in on his helmet, that's what looks like a human figure without a spacesuit reflected in the visor. Now, NASA says it's Neil Armstrong, but some say that person looks suspiciously like a guy wearing jeans. Imagine being the guy holding like a Dunkin' iced coffee while the world's most iconic fake moonshot is being filmed. Like that one, was it Game of Thrones in like the season finale? There was like a Starbucks cup somewhere on the table that made it into the final cut, which I'm still pissed off about that, by the way. It was so dark. I could barely see anything. I was so annoyed. And I literally worked up. I did all of my binging so that I can catch up to everyone else who was cool watching Game of Thrones. And I wasn't cool because I didn't watch it. So we watched it for what feels like forever. And the season finale was the series finale was just very dark.
Step into the world of Tim Burton and Danny Elfman with the San Francisco Symphony. Hear music from Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and more. Performed live by the San Francisco Symphony with stunning visuals. Plus, a special live performance by Danny Elfman himself, November 13th and 14th at Davies Symphony Hall. Don't miss Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton, November 13th and 14th only. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.
But anyway, then there's the famous C rock that I mentioned earlier. So it's a photo of a moon rock with the letter C clearly visible on it. Some say it's proof that the rocks were labeled props, like C for camera, as mentioned earlier. And NASA, of course, said it was just a hair or a fiber that got caught in the scanner when they were digitizing the film. But sure, because, we all label rocks with Sharpies. I mean, maybe now, since everybody paints rocks and leaves them around for other people to find. Now, one of the biggest red flags for skeptics is that there are no stars in any of the moon photos. Like, zero. Not one twinkle, one sparkle, not one accidental UFO cameo, nothing. NASA says the camera exposure was set for daylight on the bright moon surface so that stars wouldn't appear, which I didn't even know that was a thing back in the 60s. But conspiracy theorists say, how do you forget the entire backdrop of space when you're filming the most important footage in human history? It's like doing a beach photo shoot and forgetting the ocean. This next one is actually creepy. So some photos from different missions allegedly show the exact same background hills, even though they were supposedly taken miles apart. Critics say that that's proof that NASA reused the same printed backdrop for multiple shots. NASA says it's a perspective illusion because, the moon doesn't exactly have a diverse landscape. So next is the Van Allen radiation belt. And this one actually has some science behind it. Between Earth and the moon are two massive radiation zones called the Van Allen belts, filled with charged particles that can be deadly in high doses. Some scientists have questioned how 1960s technology could have safely protected astronauts passing through them. Like, if that radiation was strong enough to fry electronics, it should have turned the crew into, cosmic rotisserie chickens. I just ordered candy off of DoorDash, and I'm whispering because if my daughter hears DoorDash, her eyes will get real wide. Even if she's sound asleep, she'll hear it, and then she'll come ask for something. And I know these past few episodes, I always mention my daughter, and you guys are probably like, wow, you must not like her or something. But no, I love her. Most of the time. Sometimes I don't like her. Sometimes she has a nasty-ass attitude. But part of that is probably my fault because I give her attitude. And I don't mean to. I don't mean to give her attitude, It's just that, okay, so I was 19 when I had her. So, we grew up together. And, unfortunately, sometimes we're just both bitches. Also, sometimes, if we're, in the middle of, arguing or something, because we're both immature, one of us will literally just, quote SpongeBob, or if someone says a word, mispronounces a word or something, the other person will rip on them so hard. Okay, so what if, and I'm not saying this is definitely true, but what if both sides are right? What if we did go to the moon, but NASA just didn't show us what really happened there? Because if you've been down enough rabbit holes, and clearly I have, there's a whole other layer to this conspiracy. Some people believe we really went, but what we saw was an edited version. So okay, so think about it. So the original footage went missing. NASA had total control of the broadcast feed, and the world saw a filtered, delayed version of the transmission. So if something weird happened, say a UFO sighting or a strange structures or an oops, we found life moment, they could have easily cut the feed and replaced it with a loop, which, by the way, is exactly what some amateur radio operators claim they heard. During Apollo 11, a few HAM radio users allegedly picked up a private NASA channel where Armstrong supposedly said, "They're here, they're watching us." What? I can barely handle my neighbor watching me take my trash out. I am not built for alien observation. NASA's official stance is that it's all a hoax, but even Buzz Aldrin once hinted in an interview that he saw something moving alongside the spacecraft on the way to the moon. He later clarified it was just a detached panel, but sure, Buzz. That's what they all say before, the men in black show up. There's also a theory that the astronauts found something up there. Allegedly, the moon isn't just some dusty rock, it's got ancient alien structures, domes, and machinery. People claim NASA edited photos to remove strange shadows and shapes. There are official NASA images where the background looks weirdly blurred and someone went in with the space version of Photoshop, which I get it. If I saw an alien condo up there, I'd probably hit blur too. Now, let's talk about Apollo 18, 19, and 20. Officially, the Apollo program ended with Apollo 17 in 1972, but some people say the missions didn't stop, they just went black ops. According to leaked documents and sketchy testimonies, the later Apollo missions were classified because of what they found. allegedly alien ruins or evidence of an ancient civilization. There's even a supposed lost film called Apollo 20, The Forbidden Mission, that allegedly shows astronauts exploring a crashed alien spacecraft on the far side of the moon. Again, NASA called it a hoax, but if you watch it at 2 a.m. with the lights off and a snack, you're going to start questioning things. And if that wasn't weird enough, there's a theory that both the US and the Soviets found something on the moon and quietly agreed to never go back. Like a space version of, hey, let's just pretend this didn't happen. And finally, my personal favorite, some people believe the moon itself is not real, or at least not natural. The hollow moon theory says the moon is a massive artificial structure, like a satellite built by an ancient civilization or aliens. And the evidence is when NASA dropped a spent module on the lunar surface, seismometers recorded that the moon rang like a bell for nearly an hour, which is either physics being weird or the moon is basically a giant space gong. And if that's true, maybe the reason we haven't gone back isn't because of funding or politics. Maybe it's because we're not supposed to. Like, imagine you go somewhere you're not invited, see something you shouldn't, and the hosts are like, cool, love that you stopped by, don't ever come back. So maybe we did land on the moon. Maybe it wasn't faked at all. But maybe what we saw was the version they wanted us to see. And honestly, that's the scariest theory of all. Because if there's one thing the government's good at, it's not telling us shit. And that, my friends, concludes tonight's Lunar Meltdown, where we ask the question humanity has been too afraid to say out loud since 1969. Did we actually land on the moon, or did we really just commit to the bit? Whether it was NASA, Kubrick, aliens, or a bunch of interns with a fog machine, one thing's for sure. It worked, because 60 plus years later, we're still yelling about it on the internet. And in my case, into a microphone at 2 a.m. If we didn't land on the moon, congrats to Hollywood on the best special effects ever made. If we did, then congrats to NASA, but also please explain why my printer still can't connect to my Wi-Fi. Big shout out to everyone tuning in on Nighthawk Radio, where the chaos never sleeps. And to all of you listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure you hit that follow button, leave a review, and tell your favorite conspiracy-loving friend that it's time to grab their tinfoil hat and join the club. And whether you believe in the moon landing or not, remember this. Question everything, laugh at the absurdity, and don't take life or space too seriously. After all, we're all just like tiny weirdos spinning on a rock, wondering if another rock has better snacks. This week's song of the week is Nerves of Glass by Nervous Nikki and the Chill Pills. Go stream it wherever you listen to your music, because I said so. Please, stay weird, stay curious, go be kind to someone for no reason, and go be amazing.
I'm slipping sideways in my car, my foot took it too far. I'ma need a tow and I could use the ride. I'm sorry, mama, grow up sometime. I'll be just fine. Just fine. Drop dead, don't know when. Roll the dice, twist your bed. Pick your poison, take a seat. I mean no harm, I'm just a creep. Is it good or is it bad? Like it, fancy, I'd like to think that this pain would make me shrug it off, let it swell. No matter what, give them hell, give them hell, give them hell. Tripping over my words, stuttering must be my nerves class, yeah. Ridicule like splinters, they're in, they're good. I'm wishing I did, the pretty girls could. Oh, no. Smoking mirrors, buggy clothes, can't be sold, must be trash. Misfit, scrape knee, deep down, proud to be. Is it good or is it bad? Like it, well, see, I'd like to think if it's bad, but say we're bad. fake smile, broken glass. What you said, take it back. Crickets sing, walls crack. Between the lines, I'm scared to ask. Eyes that you could fall into. Find me now, tell the truth. Is it good or is it bad? Oh, it's hard to tell. Going up, going down. Guard your heart, let it melt. Just an outcast in a big town. Let's just pass. Want me to give 'em hell, me to give 'em hell.
Step into the world of Tim Burton and Danny Elfman with the San Francisco Symphony. Hear music from Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and more. Performed live by the San Francisco Symphony with stunning visuals. Plus, a special live performance by Danny Elfman himself, November 13th and 14th at Davies Symphony Hall. Don't miss Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton, November 13th and 14th only. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.